Get ready to uncover truths and reality of today's politics. Here's your host, Lori Mills.
Welcome to another edition of Uncover California. I'm super excited about today's show. We have James P. on, who I met last weekend filming an episode on Middle Ground Jubilee. It was mass deportation versus no deportation. And let me tell you, the left really doesn't know what's going on at all. And even when they think they do, they have missed the mark by huge amounts. So we're going to recap Jubilee on today's show. Our second guest, I'm really excited to have him on. It is Assemblyman Carl DeMaio. If you didn't know, he's working on a voter ID initiative because we need fair elections in California. And we're going to talk about what it's like for him being a conservative in Sacramento. So everybody, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to get started right after this break. Who's ready to have some fun? You guys, you can now charter the Scarlet Belle paddle wheel riverboat. You guys, the boat holds 150 guests. If you're planning on getting married, you can host a wedding here. If you just want to have a good party, they'll do that too. The boat holds up to 150 guests with all-inclusive packages available. There also is a midweek group discount if you're interested. They have a fully stocked bar, full-service catering, and they'll help you with event planning and theme ideas. I can tell you we did a Trumptilla on this boat, and we're going to do it again. They also have another vessel that you can throw casino night parties on. There is nothing better than the Scarlet Belle in the Channel Islands Harbor. Use promo code CALI and get a great deal on your next event. Welcome back, everybody. I just finished taping my 5th Jubilee Middle Ground episode, and I got to meet some great people. James P. from Florida, a congressional candidate, is going to join me here today. He was on the mass deportation side, as I was. And what we found was the left really didn't know what they were talking about. It's so sad how ill-informed they are when it comes to what happened at our border over the last 8 years. So we're going to watch the open for Jubilee, and then we're going to bring James in. Roll tape. Want to bring all terrorists back to the country?
It doesn't matter whether they're terrorists.
Okay.
Let me tell you why.
Were you okay with J6ers being thrown in jail without due process? Did you fight for them? Did you fight for them? Did you fight for John Strand, who was in jail for 4 years without due process?
Did they go through due process?
No.
Okay, well, if they didn't go through due process,
and
then
you guys
fine.
were real
But
silent
here's
about
the
that,
case.
but give me an MS-13 member.
Whoa.
Well, look what we have here. You guys, I want to welcome James to our broadcast today. I met him last week when we filmed Jubilee Middle Ground on mass deportation versus no deportation. James, welcome to Uncover California.
Thank you so much for having me. I've always loved your show, and when I got to meet you at Jubilee, it was crazy because I'd seen you so many times on X and just all different platforms, but getting to actually meet you, you're so much cooler in person as well.
Aw, well, thanks. So was that your first Jubilee episode?
That was. I hope to be able to keep doing more, but that was the first one I applied for, first one I got on, and it was such a fun experience to be able to talk to everyone and see the different perspectives.
Right. Well, and the different perspectives are mind-blowing to me, as I said in that clip. And throughout the show, so many on the left ignored the border. They said it was secure. Oh, the border's secure. What are you talking about? While we watched mass immigration happen in our country. And for me, knowing that I've talked to Oscar Blue, who traveled the Darien Gap, and he's been on this show several times. You guys can go back and look at old episodes. The death and the murder and the rape, even of the migrants. It was mind-blowing to me that these people are against deportation. And the one girl, I can't remember her name, stating she didn't think it was a big deal if migrants committed murder in our country, but it's no different than an American citizen, when in fact, migrant crimes are 100% preventable because they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here. What is your take on that? Like, how did you feel about some of the responses that we got on the other side?
Yeah, some of the responses were crazier than I imagined. Whenever you're dealing with liberals, especially in the media, you have to be prepared for the over-emotional responses. But I didn't think they would be that over-emotional. They had maybe one or two here and there arguments that had facts, but almost every argument they made, specifically Sydney, who was the one who made that comment that you were talking about, they weren't fact-based. They were all emotional-based claims, where she's saying that it doesn't matter if illegals come in and harm American citizens because it's no different than an American citizen doing it. When, like you said, it's completely preventable crime if you just enforce the laws at hand and keep those people out of your country. So yeah, I think it's really crazy that they try and justify all these terrible things with emotional arguments instead of any factual-based arguments.
And let's take it back. I would assume if her mother, if her cousin, if her sister or brother were murdered by an illegal immigrant, she would feel differently knowing that was a preventable crime. What do you think about the fact that they don't think any of these people should be deported? That was crazy to me.
Yeah, I really thought that they were going to argue for the stance of, yes, we do need deportations, but we need less of them than the conservatives want. But yeah, it really surprised me that they just didn't want anyone to be deported. They were even making claims as strong as everyone who lives in these South American countries should be able to just claim to be an American and have it be that easy. They cut out my part where I said that the only way that would happen would be the 51st state. I really wish they didn't cut that out. But I don't think that illegal immigration, it's one of the only crimes we just blatantly allow in this country, and it wasn't always that way. Democrats were some of the most anti-illegal immigration people. We even call Obama the deporter-in-chief. He deported upwards of 5 million people. But for some reason, liberals in a post-COVID world can't comprehend the idea of wanting to keep your country safe and protecting it like you would protect your home.
And they don't understand. Like, I watched the episode back, and one of the things that Caesar was saying was that, and it kind of blew me away in hindsight, and saying, we need to build the wall and we need to put the judges at the border. Well, the problem with that is you have these migrants traveling from all over the world into Colombia through the Darien Gap. The murders of the migrants, the rapes of the migrants still happening. And then you had, the Indian Mexican girl that was stating that all Mexican people should be able to come here. Yet all these people that are fleeing their countries are traveling up here with the gang members. Everything that they're trying to escape, they're bringing into the country. So is the long game that we're no different than these other countries? What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't import the entire third world and expect your country to not turn into more of a third world-esque nation. I don't think the U.S. is headed in that direction because I think we have really strong leadership with Donald Trump. But if Kamala Harris was to have won the election in 2024, I really do think that is the direction we'd be headed in. We're really heading away from law and order. And we're heading in a direction where, kind of like I was saying earlier, where it's just emotional-based claims and arguments are somehow overriding facts. Somehow facts have become racist and emotions are trumping everything. I don't think that we should be in a country where, to rephrase that, I think a merit-based society is the greatest way to go. And I think we need to do whatever we can to avoid crime in the United States. And if that means enforcing the laws we have at hand at the border, that's where it should start.
But at the same time, I thought it was really interesting that he's like, put the judges at the border, build a wall. And I was like, build the wall now? Now you want to build the wall?
Build the wall?
4 years ago or 8 years ago, we wanted the wall. And I would guarantee that he was anti-wall. But again, to put more judges at the border with 10.5 to 20 million people coming through our border, How many judges do you think that would take? It's nonsensical. And all the crimes that happen before they get here, if these people truly cared about the migrants, they wouldn't want them to make this journey. They wouldn't want them to travel a dangerous journey and end up dead. I don't know if I told you, but Oscar, who's been on the show before, they have been finding mass graves in Tijuana in Mexico. I don't know if these are migrants. I don't know if these are other Mexican citizens, but the cartels are running Mexico, and they are not happy about our closed border. And I don't think that the left really understands the extent of the evil that our country is facing, and even the infiltration of some of these people that have come into our country. What is your thought on that?
The fact that we allowed Tren de Aragua and MS-13 to pour into our country, they were overtaking apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado. They're flooded everywhere in Long Island, New York. Specifically, they've actually cleaned up the MS-13s up there a little bit, but under Biden specifically, I mean, Long Island, New York was basically an MS-13 hangout. It's pretty crazy that America, well, every country is going to have its own gangs, organized crime, and things like that. We shouldn't have foreign national terrorist organizations running their cartels and gangs in our country. That is so unacceptable. It's almost the equivalent to ISIS carrying out operations on American soil. They're in the same terrorist group that ISIS is in or that any of these other terrorist groups are in. And I don't think American citizens should be treating them differently, but for some reason, the media is doing that. The media is treating these MS-13 and Tren de Aragua terrorists as if they're just Maryland fathers.
And forgive me for a moment, but it wasn't just Mexico. It wasn't just South America. We were talking about people from the Middle East, from China, from all over the world came through our borders, and Russia. They were coming through our border. And it was almost as if the other side thought that the border invasion was currently going on. They kept going back to Langford's bill. And I thought it was proven, quite frankly, we didn't need Langford's bill. We needed a new president. President Trump shut it down on day one. We didn't need that bill. And even then, he's wrong. The Senate refused that bill, and H.R. 2, which did pass, that would have secured the border, was left on Schumer's desk and ignored. And that did pass the House and was never brought to a vote. So I find that argument completely ridiculous. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, most of the arguments they made I found extremely ridiculous.
And uninformed. Totally uninformed.
It was as uninformed as it could get. I want to be able to answer your question fully. So can you rephrase it one more time?
Oh my gosh, I gave you a word salad. Good God help us all. I have an idea. Let's do something else. I know I was talking about all these people from different countries coming into our border, including the CCP, including Afghanistan, including Russia.
Oh, I remembered exactly what I was going to say.
And yet these people had thought that the border invasion is still going on. They seem surprised to hear that it went from 14,000 people a day to 174. They were like, huh?
Last time I saw the border crossings, it was at an all-time low when they did a press briefing. And I study everything that's currently going on in politics. I haven't seen Trump pass a new border bill. What I have seen is him empower ICE agents to just do their jobs. And it's the same thing that ICE agents, you wouldn't hear it on the media because they wouldn't allow them on there, but you'd hear it on podcasts like Sean Ryan's show and other things like that, where they'd say, we don't need a border bill. We don't need extra officers. We don't even need more funding. What we need is to just be allowed to do our jobs as it's written and not told to just catch and release. We know these kids are being sex trafficked, but we're not even allowed to stop it. It was one of the saddest things. And when you look at the videos of the deportations, I love that the Trump administration is posting videos of these deportations. They are all military-age men. I don't see one child. I see rarely a woman. It is all 18 to 30-year-old men. And that is a scary, full-scale invasion.
Well, and what's scary about that, too, I had actually interviewed our local Ventura County sheriff last week, and I had asked him about the gangs here. Well, what the gangs are doing now, because of California law, we're Woketopia, they have basically said any child under 15 cannot be tried as an adult anymore. So what the gangs are doing is they're making kids under 15 commit the murders, to commit the crimes, because they can't be held accountable. That's crazy town, California. Please protect Florida. Really quick, yeah. I want to go ahead and play a really quick clip of you, and then we can discuss it.
Love to see it.
Are you saying that all Mexican residents have a claim to U.S. citizenship then?
Honestly, they should, because there's been so many laws violated, so many treaties broken that, allowed us to be already U.S., right?
Well, that is an interesting little clip right there. She wants all of Mexico to have U.S. citizenship. And again, talking to Oscar Blue, the murders from the cartels that are going on down south right now, it's a bloodbath. So is she saying just welcome them all into our country, no biggie?
I think the only way that happens, like I was saying, is if we take them in as the 51st state. Any other way, I don't even consider it to be a viable possibility. I think she was one of the most uninformed on the entire thing. She made the most emotional based arguments out of everyone, specifically that one. And it's not even feasible to the idea of just bringing in like every Mexican resident. If they want to say, yeah, I'm an American now, that's not how it works. I can't just walk into Pakistan and say I'm Pakistani, or I can't walk into North Korea and say I'm North Korean. I would get killed. So they shouldn't get killed if they do that coming to the U.S., but they definitely shouldn't just be able to get citizenship. That's as ridiculous as it gets.
Well, and understand the cartels are running Mexico right now. The Mexican government, the president of Mexico, she's terrified of the cartels. I believe when they had the presidential elections, they had over 150 candidates executed. So the only way we make them the 51st state is the U.S. military's got to go take out the cartels. Are they okay with that?
I'm personally a huge believer in the idea that we should be using cruise missiles to take out the military, or not the military,
the cartels.
To take out the cartels. Yeah, I think any way we can avoid boots on the ground doing it would be best. I'm not completely opposed to boots on the ground in certain situations.
We got drones.
Oh yeah, that was what I was about to get to. I think drones and cruise missiles are the two most effective things. I mean, you could put a cruise missile, between the camel's toes. It's so accurate. Like it is, those things are crazy. So I really think if we're able to take out large, cartel compounds where the leaders live, where they keep most of their stashes, it would do wonders, not only for the United States, but Mexico as well. Mexico has the ability to flourish as a country, but they're currently being held down by themselves. They don't want to break free of the cartel, and they need to.
Well, and their government, you think ours is corrupt? Theirs is extremely corrupt. And don't kid yourself, Ms. President down there was installed by the cartels. And what we're seeing now too are, Oscar was telling me about these influencers from Mexico, and what they're doing is they're putting up posts that basically recruit young girls. You can be a model, you can be this, and they're still sex trafficking these young women. I think because of our border being closed now, we're not having them cross over our border. But understand, there's 300,000 missing kids in our country alone, and that's another topic that the left didn't want to touch. They didn't seem to care that there were 300,000 missing kids, but Kilmore Garcia, that poor MS-13 member, we've got to rescue poor Kilmore. Poor Kilmore.
It's one of the craziest things. I like to call them the liberal woke mob because they come and wreck absolutely everything. The fact that they care about Kilmore Garcia, someone who beat his wife on multiple occasions, was an illegal citizen in this country given deportation orders 2 different times. And I loved in the Jubilee thing, he chimes in, he goes, oh, that happened under Trump's campaign. But no, those deportation orders were under Joe Biden, who didn't deport anybody. So I don't know, the fact that they stood behind Kilmar and they refused to acknowledge Rachel Morin, Laken Riley. Not a single one of them clapped for them. Not a single one of them stood up at the inauguration speech. And not a single Democrat voted for the Laken Riley Act, which is extremely disappointing.
Well, the bottom line is they don't care about you. They don't care about America. They care about power. Another thing that people don't realize is Joe Biden, and again, I don't think Joe Biden was in control of anything. Let's be real. The auto pen was, and we need to find out who was behind the auto pen. But Joe Biden's administration entered us into the global compact of migration. They don't want borders. They want a one world government. And I really am interested to see who is behind the auto pen. What are your thoughts on the recent diagnosis of cancer right after the Her tapes came out?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've known about the cancer for years. There was a clip of Biden talking, I think it was 2.5, 3 years ago, where he literally says that he has cancer, and the media says that it was just a slip up. And the fact that liberals didn't acknowledge he had dementia right then and there on the spot is crazy to me. But we got to this point where now they're saying that they're releasing that he has stage 4 cancer right after the tapes come out that pretty much show that everything that conservatives have been saying about Biden has been true, that he had no clue what he was doing. He probably didn't even know he was in the White House or the president the majority of the time. I personally think it was Obama or some senior staff officials who were running the White House. I'm not sure of that. But for the auto pen, I read something today. I don't know if it's 100% true, but there were leading reports saying that they were pretty much auctioning off this auto pen, that they were like, if people wanted pardons, they were just for certain amounts of money, certain checks, they were being written with the auto pen. Whether that's factual information or not, the White House is reporting that today. Cabinet members of Trump have said that today publicly. So I think there probably is some factual basis to it. Whether they've released that to us or not, I want to see the facts as they come. But it's a crazy thought to think they were just auctioning off pardons at 15 minutes before Trump's inauguration.
What's amazing about that is I think that this administration is really deliberate. I don't think that they mess around. I think with DOGE and the deep dive into our institutions, they're going to find this. And watching Dan Bongino and Kash Patel the other day on Mario Bartiromo, those boys aren't messing around. Both of them were targets of Obama. Both of them were targets of the Biden administration. These guys aren't going to back down. I trust Kash and Dan, and I think they're going to get to the bottom of everything, and it needs to happen. What do you think?
Yeah, I love them. And I mean, I love Pam Bondi as well. I have to throw her in there. I think anytime I see Kash or Pam Bondi get up to the podium, I get extremely excited. I know whatever they're about to say is going to be impactful to the American people. They're either going to give us some transparency that we weren't offered by the Biden administration, whether it's, new Epstein files, whatever it is, or they're going to pretty much tell the American people exactly what they're planning to do, which is, again, just transparency, but it's a complete shift from anything I've ever experienced. This is, in my lifetime, I was born in 1999. This is the first presidential candidate and cabinet that I think has actually cared about me. I don't have any problems with George Bush. I was very young during his presidency, but looking back on it, I don't have a ton of issues with it, but I don't think he loved the American people like Trump does. Obama definitely didn't. And Joe Biden, I don't even think he was the real president. So I really think it feels great to have a president who directly speaks to the American people almost every day, and it feels like he actually cares about me.
What's interesting that you even saying that, and it's something I thought about after the fact. I was the grandma of the group and have no problem with that. You were born in 1999. I'm going to guess the other panelists were close to your age. The thing is I'm old enough to remember firsthand those towers in New York being struck by airplanes. I'm old enough to remember watching ISIS behead Anthony Foley, a journalist. I'm old enough to remember ISIS putting people in cages and burning them alive. And do you think maybe that's part of the disconnect? that because they haven't experienced the horror of terrorism in their lifetime, that they just don't think anything can happen to them. I know when I was young, I thought nothing could happen to me, but those were eye-opening moments for America. And we said we would never forget, but it seems to me that the next generation has forgotten, or they just are ill-informed and can't conceive that this sort of evil happens.
I think you're kind of hitting the nail right on the head there. So originally, I'm from North Jersey. The town I grew up in, a lot of the dads and moms in my town worked in New York City, and a lot of them worked in the Trade Center. And obviously, I was 1 or 2 years old when the planes hit the towers, so I don't really remember it or anything. But I do remember growing up, and there were a lot of kids in my town who didn't have a parent or parents around because of that. And my dad would take us to New York City to see the memorial sites and everything like that, because my dad actually worked in the towers years before they were hit. So my
Wow.
dad had connections to a lot of I mean, I've never seen my dad bawl more in his life than looking at the names at the memorial site because he knows so many of them. It really is such a tragic event. And I do think you're hitting the nail right on the head that a lot of people who haven't experienced these tragedies or didn't live near them, if they like, I didn't experience it, but I lived close enough to it, and so did a lot of the people in my town, that even though we were younger, even the liberals from my town aren't that crazy pro mass importation of illegal immigrants because they understand the consequences of what could happen. So I do think there is a huge disconnect from whether it's from where they grew up or from the age difference. I do think that could factor into like why there's I don't know. I really do think liberals now are a lot more lost than liberals of 10, 20 years ago.
Well, I don't even think they're liberals anymore. I think they have fallen off the boat. They're more Marxist communist, you know?
Socialism.
And I think, well, it's beyond socialism at this point. I found it very interesting as well that we talked about Jocelyn Nungaray and we talked about Rachel Morin and the Americans that had been murdered by these immigrants. And there was no emotion for those people. The only emotion there was for the criminals, which just blew me away. And even talking to them about the Darien Gap, you know, the Third Safe Country Act was an international treaty that we had in place, and Joe Biden eliminated it. You used to have to be able, well, even during Trump's administration, his first term, the Democrats fought us on that. But that treaty is an international treaty that says if you're in danger in Afghanistan, you can go 3 countries over. You don't come across the world to America. And they seem to think that we can handle every immigrant of this world. And it was mind-blowing to me. And then to go back to the violence of 9/11, I can tell you exactly where I was when those planes hit. I can tell you, and they have really, and I'm not even kidding you, softened the historical videos of that day. I'll never forget, because I was on top of those buildings before. I went there. I have a picture of me and some police officers, and I will never forget people above the fire line, probably 80 floors plus up, hanging out the window, waving their shirts for help, knowing that they were going to die. They were going to die, and that was it. And then people started jumping out of those buildings. And again, watching what ISIS actually did to our American journalists and to their own citizens, there's a level of evil that they're not comprehending. Just because somebody is an immigrant and they're from the other side of the world doesn't mean that they have our values, doesn't mean that they value life. And they don't want to assimilate to our country. We look at what's going on in Europe and in Paris right now. They've lost their country. I always say London has fallen. London is no more. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the assimilation thing, again, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think if I was to move to almost any other country in the world, it wouldn't be forced, unless certain countries, but it would be expected of me and forced in a lot of instances for me to assimilate to their culture, learn their language, all the things that we used to expect immigrants to do in America, but now we don't expect them to do that at all. It became a thing where like I could find clips of Hillary Clinton 12, 15 years ago saying, if you're going to come to America, you're going to learn English. You're going to assimilate to our culture. Hillary Clinton wouldn't be caught dead saying those words now just because she's scared of what the liberals and the woke media mob would do to her. It's really sad how many countries are falling to the woke media and how many countries are losing their values and what they've always believed in and stood for and the beauty of their countries just to try and not offend some immigrants.
Amen, brother. But let's just make it really clear. Hillary Clinton is super evil. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We're already through our half hour. So take the next few minutes to tell everybody about you. You are running for Congress, so let everybody know about that. Let them know where you're located and where they can find you on social media and your podcast.
Yeah, I'm James Paskilades. My podcast is mainly on YouTube, Rumble, and X, America Unfiltered with James Paskilades, 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. I'm also running for Florida House of Representatives for 2028. I want to be able to represent my constituents in Florida. I want to make the drinking water better in Florida. I want to be able to do what I can to make it safer in the area, lower crime, and support Florida.
And see, I sit here in California going, oh my gosh, those people over in Florida have no idea how craziness is. You need to protect your state.
Crazy over there.
You need to protect your state. Give everybody your X handle. What is your handle on X?
Yeah, my X handle is just my name, James Paskilades, at James Paskilades, Paskalides.
Yeah, because try saying that without knowing how to say it or spelling it for that matter.
It could go 20
I'm just going to
ways.
call you Joe P. Well, thanks so much for coming on, James. I really appreciate it. I totally enjoyed meeting you and working with you on Jubilee. And hopefully we'll get cats together again. I don't know. The left hates me the most. I'm convinced of that. But,
I don't know. I've always loved seeing you on there. I love working with you on there. And I've always loved your podcast and your shows and your social media stuff. I think you're killer at what you're doing. And when they hate you, that's how you know you're doing well.
Well, thanks a lot, James. And we'll touch base soon. Thanks for coming on.
Hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, stay tuned. Our next guest is Assemblymember Carl DeMaio, who's going to talk to us about how woke Sacramento is. And he's also going to talk to you about the voter ID initiative that he is pushing in California. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. I don't know if you've been supporting the show by going to themagamall.com, but I just got my new DOGE hat. I love this hat. He's got so many new designs. He has Maha. He's got ice hats. But anyways, remember to go to themagamall.com. And if you use promo code Kelly, CALI, you'll get a really good discount. Check out the DOGE hat. Everybody needs one. Welcome back, everybody. I'm super excited to have Assemblyman Carl DeMaio on the show today. He's going to tell us about all the crazy stuff happening in Sacramento, and he's going to talk to us about the voter ID initiative that he is promoting to make elections fair in California.
I cannot believe you just said that this bill does not pay lip service to survivors, because that is the absolute definition of what this offensive bill does. You sit there and you water down the penalties. You're paying lip service to the 16 and 17-year-old victims of sex crimes. I mean, what more does it take for this caucus, the Democrat caucus, to wake up and realize you're on the wrong side of this issue? It is so patently offensive. And why? Because you have an extremist wing of your party that says somehow it is normal to have sex with minors. Let me review the bidding. SB 145 in 2020, signed by Governor Newsom, notwithstanding the theatrics that he has engaged in this week on this bill. SB 145 would allow a predator to molest a child as young as 14 years of age and avoid mandatory sex offender registry. That's what this legislature passed. That's what this governor put into law, because it is reflective of a perverse, deviant, perverted philosophy that somehow it is normal for men to molest young boys and young girls. SB 357, which this bill is trying to fix, legalized loitering for the purpose of sex trafficking, sex work, and prostitution. Why? Because somehow it was spun as anti-LGBT to try to enforce laws against sex trafficking. I will tell you, as a gay Republican, it is offensive, and a supermajority of the gay community, they disavow the LGBT caucus, claiming that somehow this bill is anti-gay. It's offensive to use the gay community as window dressing for sex trafficking. That's what's going on here. Make no mistake about it. These are young minors. They are victims of sex trafficking, and this bill would allow predatory behavior to continue without punishment. What this bill does is it does pay lip service because it says a couple words that seem to cover 16 and 17-year-olds, but then it takes away the ability of prosecutors to actually prosecute and punish individuals who purchase 16 and 17-year-olds. That, at the end of the day, is the plain English legal standing of what you're about to do.
Carl DeMaio, welcome to Uncover California. It's great to have you here, sir.
Thanks for having me, Lori.
Well, you've been a busy man. Tell me what it's been like up in Sacramento. As our viewers just saw, you defeated the sex trafficking bill, which, again, didn't surprise me coming out of Sacramento. But tell me about your fights up in Sacramento lately.
Well, I didn't defeat it. The people defeated it. And it really does reinforce why I believe strongly we can take back this state from the insanity of the far left. The problem is that we've not had a two-party system in California for many years. We haven't had balance. We haven't really had a voice of opposition. And so if we want to take back our state, the first thing we have to do is we have to take back the Republican Party. We have to give it a swift kick in the rear end and demand that they be an opposition party and stand on principle. I've said from the get-go that we start turning the tide by speaking up. Right. And when one person speaks up, then it does cause a chorus of others to finally get off the sidelines and speak up as well. And that's what you saw with the sex trafficking bill. That's what I think you're going to see with so many other battles. But as insane as you think Sacramento is from a distance, inside the belly of the beast, this place is rotten to the core. It is worse than you can ever possibly imagine. They are so corrupt up here. They are so out of touch. They are so extreme. And that's why, we do need principled fighters to get up here and try to bring the voice of the people into the process, because we have a broken system here, and we must start with reforming the system in order to get better results on policy issues.
You've been in this fight a long time with Reform California, and I thank you so much, sir, because you are one of those voices that has never been shy to speak truth to power. And I do agree with you. I think that people that have a strong voice, that aren't afraid to speak truth, it's contagious. There was so much fear in our state over COVID in the last few years where people were afraid to speak out. But it's people like you and people like James Gallagher and people like Tony Strickland that are the honey badgers of the state. And I applaud you, sir. You were removed recently from certain committees, the budget committee. Is that what the left does to you up there with this supermajority? Just if they don't agree with you, they turn off your mics and just silence you. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah. So a little bit of a history on me. Prior to going into politics, I actually ran one of the largest good government reform groups in the nation, the Performance Institute, which I founded in the 1990s. And I've got a pretty lengthy career that I've established in turning around financially troubled organizations, doing audits, doing fiscal and financial transparency reports, performance management. And I took all those skill sets and have been applying them to government at the federal, state, and local level for the past 30 years. So when I was elected and I was appointed to the budget committee, I said, okay, this is great. I'm going to be able to use my skills. And, boy, they really made a thoughtful appointment here. Well, I don't think they actually did their due diligence and research because I only made it on the budget committee for 2 meetings. So the first meeting, I uncovered that the Newsom budget was not balanced. And Newsom said that in January that his budget was, quote, modestly balanced. It had a modest surplus. And I said, no, he's a liar. You have a 10 to 11, $12 billion deficit. That's what I was saying in January. And here we are in May, and Newsom admits that he has a 10 to $12 billion deficit. At that same meeting, I pinpointed what was driving our deficit in large part was the free healthcare handouts to illegal immigrants at state taxpayer expense. And we blew the lid open on the financial crisis in Medi-Cal, the program they're using to give out the free health care to illegal immigrants, and that it wasn't costing $6 billion and with reimbursements from the federal government. It's costing $10 billion, and there are no reimbursements from the federal government because these are ineligible recipients, and you can't use federal funds for illegal immigrants for welfare under federal law. And so we exposed that. Then in the next meeting, I exposed, by the way, they warned me after that first meeting that I better shut up, that I better stop it, better behave myself. And I said, okay, well, whatever.
Because democracy.
Yeah, I might pick a finger. So in the second meeting, I went after their money laundering, and we identified contracts and grants that Newsom and Democrats have been using through the state budget with your state taxpayer money to fund far left-wing groups. We came up with 73 NGO groups that are being funded with your taxpayer money through a COVID-19 project that, again, COVID-19 is so far, gone and done, but they're still having these COVID-19 programs with all this money being given out. And we went through these 73 organizations, and they're all left-wing lobbying groups, fringe political groups, your taxpayer money funding far-left politics. And so at the end of that hearing, I was thrown off because Newsom and the Democrats, they don't like it when you shine a light on their corruption and their wasteful spending. And so I knew that there would be retaliation, but don't worry, I don't need to be on the budget committee to DOGE California. And that's what we've been doing out of my office for the past 5 months since I took the oath, is we've been doing a DOGE California program. And we've been uncovering, again, billions and billions in wasteful spending. And we've been posting the clips to my social media accounts. And the word is getting out there. We are shining a light on their grift. And we are trying to make sure that the taxpayers of the state of California know that they don't have to pay higher taxes. They don't have to have draconian service cuts in core services. What we need is a heavy dose of reform, business process reengineering to be applied to state government, and we'll be just fine.
California seems to have a spending problem. We go back to Proposition 1 in 2014 with the water resources that we never received to build more water storage, never happened. And in the meantime, we watched the Palisades burn up in Altadena. We watched the Woolsey fire. And now the voters just passed Proposition 36. And it's my understanding not one penny has gone towards this. Is that true?
That's right. Gavin Newsom in his budget will not fund the implementation of Prop 36. Prop 36 is the Make Crime Illegal Again initiative in the state of California. Basically, it says that prosecutors and police should be given back the tools to arrest, prosecute, and punish criminals. But in order to do that, you actually have to fund it. You have to have prison beds so that when you do prosecute someone, that you can actually put them away, force them to serve their prison sentence. But in this year's budget, not only has Gavin Newsom not funded prosecutions, and law enforcement. But what he's done is he's shut down yet another prison. This is a guy who's released 90,000 prisoners from state prison since he came into office in 2018. And it has led to a crime wave. And so in this year's budget, he literally has said, well, the local government politicians that backed Prop 36, they should fund Prop 36. If they supported it, they should fund it. And I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't just local government politicians that backed Prop 36. California voters overwhelmingly backed Prop 36. These are their taxpayer dollars that you've decided to divert from what they want to fund. They want to fund police and prosecutors. They want to combat crime. And yet Gavin Newsom has stolen the money. There's no better way to describe it. He has stolen the money that the public wants to go for public safety and crime fighting. He's stolen that money to give to illegal immigrants and to his multi-billionaire backers who get various sweetheart contracts and giveaways at taxpayer expense. Let's be very clear about this. He stole the money from public safety. He's raised the cost of living in California so that he can give paybacks to his campaign contributors as he runs for president. This is grift. It's corrupt, and it needs to be exposed.
And we look at the homeless crisis and how much money's been put into that, and it never gets better. I actually just did a clip of Gavin going back probably 6 years where I'm giving $500 billion to the homeless. I'm giving $9 billion to the homeless crisis. And now he just did a press conference where he's just not going to put up with it anymore. And it's everybody else's fault because he's a victim. What are your thoughts on Gavin as far as this money laundering? Where's the money actually going? And what warning would you have for the people of the United States of America not to buy the grift?
Well, when his mouth is moving, he's lying. Okay, that the best way to understand what's going on with Gavin Newsom is that he's a privileged punk. This is a guy who's had everything handed to him on a silver platter by a bunch of billionaires. You want to talk about white privilege? This guy's the epitome, the walking definition of white privilege. And so he's never earned any position he's ever gotten. If you take a look at his political career, it's always been teed up for him. He's not particularly smart. He's not capable. Just think about Kamala Harris, but with more hair gel. That's basically Gavin Newsom. So he's got, a little bit more panache, but there's no real substance there. So that when he is caught on his failure, he literally has this ability. And I've seen, politicians lie all the time, but this guy has taken it to a whole new level. He can sit there and bald face lie to you and have no shame about it. He does this on oil and gas prices. He'll say, Californians are paying $2.50 higher than the national gas average. It's all because of price gouging by oil and gas companies. What, are they angels in the other 49 states? We have a $2.50 per gallon higher price than the national average. And so the only way you buy that nonsense is to, think that somehow they're not, price gouging in the other 49 states. He's like the devil complaining about sin. He blames everyone else for the bad things that he has caused and he's doing. And the way he's gotten away with it is the fact that we have a liberal media enterprise in California that he's now funding in his budget, by the way. He's got taxpayer money going to journalism, local journalism in California. It's basically the hush money that he's paying so that they don't actually kick the tires and shine a light on his failures as he's running for president. But the reality is this: he is a failure as a governor. And when he runs for president, the good thing is that failed record will come out and be on display for all to see, because there are national news outlets out there that will kick the tires and will shine a light. And we're going to help them do it at Reform California. We have a whole campaign called Expose Gavin Newsom. And we're building a dirt file, and we know he's running for president, and that's why that dirt file needs to be very complete so that we can nail him when he actually tries to run for higher office.
Well, I guarantee I'm going to be putting you on notifications and sharing everything that you have, because I've got a big California audience and People need to know the truth. And one thing that I've noticed is when you go to look up what the Democrats are actually voting for, because they'll lie when they present a new bill saying that, oh, you're voting for fuzzy puppies when it's a new tax. They never tell us the truth about what a bill actually means. So you, sir, are working on a new voter ID initiative. And I'm really excited about this because I don't think that our elections have been safe nor secure in California for a very, very long time. I ran for the assembly in 2022. My own son's vote didn't show up. I canvassed before the last election, canvassed about 1,000 homes. 25% of the people that I visited told me that they vote in every election, yet their votes don't get there. Then I spent a month curing ballots, watching them throw out all these ballots. This is no good. This is no good. And it could be connected to all these left-wing groups that our taxpayers are funding. They've got armies of people that are paid to protest, that are paid to cure, that are paid to walk. Indivisible comes to mind. Tell us about your voter initiative and tell us what that can do for everyday Californians to improve our trust in our local elections and in our state elections.
Well, we are not going to take back our state until we actually fix the fraudulent election process that we have. And that's why California voter ID is so crucial that we enact that initiative in the 2026 election. So we've authored a statewide constitutional amendment that does two things. Number one, citizenship verification. In order to be registered as a voter in the state of California, my initiative would require that your citizenship be verified. And that it's a very simple process. It's not complicated, but you have to verify citizenship, which means we're going to have to update our voter rolls. It cleans our voter rolls in one fell swoop and then maintains it every year thereafter. Citizenship verification is step one. Step two is that once you verify everyone on that list, then you have to require identity verification every time someone casts a ballot. This prevents the fraudulent votes of ballot harvesting and ensures that people are who they say they are when they're casting their ballot. And so we have a voter ID requirement as well. It's a 1-2 punch that if we implement those two reforms, it will substantially improve the integrity of our elections. Citizenship verification has 79% voter approval. Even a supermajority of Democrats approve it. Voter ID, also very popular, 68% voter approval. 54% of Democrats approve it. And so we believe that once this is on the ballot, this will pass overwhelmingly, but we got to get 1 million signatures to put it on the ballot. So I'm encouraging everyone to join the fight. We need volunteer signature collectors ASAP. We cannot do this without volunteers. So if you want voter ID, sign up at the website VoterIDvolunteer.org. VoterIDvolunteer.org. And if you can't volunteer but you want to sign the petition, go to VoterIDPetition.org. VoterIDPetition.org. And when you sign up on that website, you're putting your name on the list that will get the first printing of the petition in October when we're cleared from the Secretary of State to actually collect wet signatures. That'll be the very first distribution of the official petitions is to anyone who signs up on the website, VoterIDPetition.org. The reason why we have to do this is that because we are a grassroots campaign and we don't have the money that the special interests have to qualify an initiative, we cannot just start collecting signatures within the 180-day window that they give us. That doesn't give us enough time to find a voter who wants to sign the petition and then get the wet signature. So what we've done at Reform California, we did this starting in 2018 with the gas tax repeal, is that we start the process way in advance through the online petition process so that we say to all the voters out there, look, if we gave you the petition, would you sign it? This is how we pre-identify the support base necessary to qualify on a shoestring budget. It's so crucial that we get people to sign up at VoterIDPetition.org to get the petition. And then, of course, we would like you to help us get it to other people in your neighborhood, so become a volunteer at VoterIDvolunteer.org. We're also going around the state organizing the campaign. So this past weekend, we did organizing meetings in Santa Clarita and in Corona. Coming up in June, early June, Scott Pressler from Early Vote Action will be coming and joining me at 3 rallies on June 14th, Santa Monica at 8:30 in the morning. Then we're going to do Huntington Beach at noon, and then San Diego at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But we're also going all around the state of California. Central Valley, we're doing in the month of July. We will then have these various regions organized throughout the state to be the center of gravity of campaigns for their area. And then we're going to do a bus tour in the fall once we're cleared for actual wet signature collection. So it's a very grassroots campaign. We're building it out statewide, but we need everyone off the couch and into the fight. VoterIDpetition.org. Share that with all your friends.
We'll even put it in the description, and we'll also put it up on the screen for you so everybody can see. I ran after being treated like crap as a candidate. I ran for the Central Committee here.
42nd District, yes.
Yes. I did end up running for the Central Committee, and I'm now vice chair. And I do want to reiterate something that you had said. If you guys just go online and you sign up, that's not enough. You have to do a wet signature for it to be a valid signature for the petition. But we up here in Ventura County, we would love to have you up here. I've already offered. I will throw an event for you, whatever you want.
We're coming.
We'll have your back.
In the fall, we absolutely have 2 stops already scheduled on the bus tour. Because what we plan to do is events every 4 to 6 weeks so that they become turn-in opportunities. Because if we just do one event, volunteers need to have something to look forward to. Yes. And so at these rallies, we're going to recognize the top performing volunteers. You're going to hear from elected officials and candidates. This really has been thought through with great detail. And I'm not just about voter ID qualifying in 2026. We have the Taxpayer Protection Initiative that we're backing for the ballot. And we have all sorts of wonderful candidates that we want to support up and down the state. So this is really about not just getting voter ID qualified. It's about rebuilding our grassroots movement from the ground up throughout the entire state.
And it's fabulous because, again, we had a complete grassroots movement just to take over this party up here. And we are the boots on the ground. And I always tell everybody, own your own neighborhood. You can't expect a small few to do all this work for you. You can't sit there on Twitter and Facebook and complain about everything all the time. You have to get involved. You have to walk your own neighborhood and talk to your neighbors. We've got apps that you can use, like Turning Point Action has a fabulous app that you can download to your phone, where if you're scared you don't want to knock on a Democrat's door, it'll tell you who all the Republicans are, so you don't have to worry about that. There's so many great ways to get involved. So, Carl, tell me about this taxpayer initiative you're working on.
Sure. The Prop 13 revolution from 1978 was a landmark reform, and it actually went nationwide to lower taxes, to limit the ability of politicians to raise taxes. And it's been a huge cost savings for families and homeowners up and down the state. But unfortunately, in the 40 years since it passed, politicians, with the help of liberal judges that they've appointed, have opened up loopholes in Prop 13. And now they're able to enact taxes outside of the Prop 13 framework through these loopholes. So that's why a coalition of taxpayer advocates, including the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, who we've partnered with, they and our organization, Reform California, are working to pass the Taxpayer Protection Initiative in the state of California that does 3 things. Number one, it requires honest ballot titles on every tax increase to disclose that we actually have a tax increase on the ballot.
It's not fuzzy puppies.
Correct. Second, it would specifically limit the ability of politicians to enact certain taxes, including a mileage tax, an exit tax, a sales tax, a savings tax, as well as car taxes and gas taxes and utility taxes, a whole range of taxes. The property transfer tax that LA just implemented 2 years ago is crushing their real estate market. And so we go after that. So we're trying to specifically limit types of taxes that we've seen pop up in recent years that have devastated the cost of living. And then third, we restore the requirement of a 2/3 vote for tax increases at the local level. And that really is necessary because a lot of times the local governments hold hostages. They say that if you don't approve a tax increase, they're going to cut police or fire. And the hostage taking has really made it hard to defeat the local taxes. And so the 2/3 vote requirement is absolutely necessary to have local taxpayer protection. Those are the three main elements that we're focusing on with the Taxpayer Protection Initiative, and we want to get this on the ballot in 2026.
So as we're winding down on time, would you tell my audience how important it is that we do elect more Republicans to the state assembly and state senate just to get balance back, just to have checks and balances again? How important is that, Carl?
It's hugely important, and in two respects. Number one, if we want to stop the tax increases, let's break the supermajority so they don't have the 2/3 vote to enact taxes. If they've got 2/3 of the votes, they can do anything with 2/3. But second, even though they control 60 votes in the assembly and we only have 20, and that's a major, they've got a supermajority. Some of the more controversial bills are only passing by 1 or 2 votes. They only get 41 votes or 42 votes because the Democrats basically don't vote on bad bills to protect their hide. But there's still enough lunatic Democrats up there to vote. If we can just peel off a few more votes, some of the bad bills then can actually go down in defeat. So when people say, oh, it's so hard to get to a majority, I grant you that. It's going to be hard to get to a majority, but we're going to get there someday. But the way you start that process is to break the supermajority. And all we need to do is pick up 7 seats from where we are right now to really be in a position to rebalance the political system. And I've got a list of 16 seats that are easily winnable. If we
42 is a
get our
winnable
act
seat.
together.
42 is a winnable seat, especially after the fires. I had the mayor of Malibu's endorsement in the 22 race, and I ran on fire danger, controlled burns, putting livestock back in the hills. And the mayor of Malibu told me that day, he said, Lori, if Topanga goes up, so does the Palisades. And guess what just happened?
That's exactly what just happened.
Yeah, and Jackie Irwin, of course, her campaign was Lori Mills is a MAGA extremist Nazi. And unfortunately, there's people that actually believe that, which is just absolutely nuts. I think the Republican positions are pro-family. They're pro-economy. Our state would be so much better run if we had checks and balances in the assembly. We have to be able to talk to people again. We cannot just have a one-party rule that kicks people off committees, turns off their microphones, and pretty much destroys the state. I grew up here. I'm not leaving. I'm going to fight to the end, as you are, sir. So, tell everybody once again where they can find you. We are pretty much out of time, and I know you have a busy day, where they can find you on social media, and also your websites again, where they can get the Voter ID Initiative.
First, we do have a podcast that posts every day at 5 o'clock, Reform California with Carl DeMaio. You can find me on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, Reform California, Carl DeMaio, and subscribe. Hit that notification button, and that way you'll get updated every day with our new episodes every day at 5 o'clock. Second, we have our headquarters is on the internet at reformcalifornia.org, and you can sign up at the bottom of that website. You can chip in a contribution, put gas in the tank. And then finally, to help us with the Voter ID Initiative, go to VoterIDinititive.org. VoterIDPetition.org to sign up, and we will send you the petition when we're cleared from the Secretary of State.
Thank you so much for coming on, Carl. I really appreciate it. I'm rooting for you up there, and we're here to support you in any way that we can.
All right. Thank you so much, Lori.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Next week, we have a really serious story for you parents out there. Is your kid being catfished online? We're going to meet a mother and her 13-year-old daughter who basically, she was sucked in by a very dangerous person on the internet. Now their mission is to educate other parents and other students to avoid the dangers on social media and online. See you next week. If you enjoyed this video, remember to follow me on X at Lori Mills, the number 4CA42, Uncover Cali on Rumble, and Uncover California on YouTube.
California.